In the beginning, every seeker asks the same thing. How do I gain control of my life? But peace does not lie in control. It lives in surrender. We are taught to grip life like a rope, tight, anxious, afraid it will slip. But the monk, he watches the river flow. He doesn't build a dam, he builds stillness. Control is the first illusion you must unlearn. You were not sent here to tame the sky. You were sent here to feel the wind. There was once a young seeker who climbed high into the mountains. He had studied every book, practiced every method. When he reached the ancient temple, he was certain he was ready. At the gate, the old monk smiled gently and said, "You've brought too much to receive anything." Control is baggage, heavy with expectations, loud with fear. The mind that clings cannot hold peace. It's already full. A monk does not control the world around him. He regulates the world within him. Breath, focus, reaction. These are the only three things we are ever truly given. Everything else is weather, unpredictable, unowned. When I was a young novice, I used to fear storms. I would panic when the wind howled and the rain drowned the ground. My master would place a cup outside the temple. He'd say, "Let the storm fill it. Then tell me if it fought the rain." To let go does not mean to give up. It means to loosen your grip on what was never yours to hold. Control is rooted in fear. Fear of pain, fear of change, fear of the unknown. But monks learn not to fear change. We bow to it. We see impermanence not as a threat, but as the sacred rhythm of life. In the monastery, there is a ritual each morning. We sweep the leaves. By evening, more fall. So we sweep again. We do not curse the wind, we greet it. That is the peace found in surrender, not in fixing the world, but in flowing with it. Control asks, "What if this goes wrong?" Wisdom replies, "Then I will adapt." Control says, "This must happen." Peace says, "I will show up no matter what happens." A mind at peace does not demand the road be straight. It simply keeps walking. Many people try to control others, their partner, their child, their status. But a flower does not. Real power does not command. It listens. So I ask you, where in your life are you trying to force the river to flow backward? What would happen if you let go? Imagine carrying a heavy stone through a forest. You've forgotten why you picked it up, but now you've convinced yourself you must carry it forever. Let it down. See how light your breath becomes, how your steps soften, how the forest finally whispers to you again. A peaceful soul does not need to predict tomorrow. It prepares with presence. Monks don't know what each day will bring, but we rise with intention. We move with care. We release with trust. Control tells you that freedom comes from getting everything right, but peace teaches that freedom comes from accepting what is. Even the birds don't trust the branch they sit on. They trust their wings. Let that sink in. You weren't born to grip the tree. You were born to fly from it. In one of the oldest Zen koans, a monk is asked what the path to peace is. He replies, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." It sounds too simple, and yet that's the point. Control complicates. Peace simplifies. When the mind quiets, the soul can breathe. In the monastery, we are taught, peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of poise. You may lose a job, a relationship, a plan, but you do not lose your center unless you hand it away. You are not your results. You are your rituals. You are not your outcomes. You are your outlook. You are not what happens. You are how you return to yourself afterward. If you wish to find peace, stop trying to control the wind and learn to adjust your sail. There's no glory in fighting the ocean, but there is great power in learning to float. Today, ask yourself, can I be okay even if this doesn't go as planned? Can I show up without the outcome attached? Can I breathe without trying to rearrange the universe? That, dear soul, is the beginning of unshakable peace. Not in certainty, but in surrender. Not in domination, but in presence. The world is noisy. Even when it's quiet, the noise remains. Notifications, expectations, inner narration. But monks, we seek the stillness between sounds, the silence between breaths. That is where real peace lives. True silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. Most people wait for the world to quiet down, but a monk learns to quiet within, even when the world does not. When you take a breath, notice that brief moment before the next, that subtle pause. That's not emptiness. That's where the soul whispers. There was a novice in our temple who could not meditate. He fidgeted, sighed, always distracted. One day the master handed him a single candle and said, "Watch the flame until it teaches you something." The boy watched. For minutes, then hours. The flame did not speak, but it quieted something inside him. Stillness is not something you chase. It is something you remember. Every breath is a doorway. Inhale, you arrive. Exhale, you let go. Between the two, that is the temple. The mind is like a wild horse, pulling at reins, rushing to past and future. Stillness is the gentle hand that tames it. We do not fear the noise outside. We fear meeting the noise inside. But here is the truth. If you sit long enough with your own thoughts, they eventually grow quiet, like children who realize their tantrums aren't being fed. Monks are not born peaceful. We train for it, and that training begins with breath. Not deep breath, but aware breath. Not forced silence, but invited silence. We rise before dawn, when the world still dreams. We sweep, we sit, we breathe. No phone, no task, no distraction, just presence. There's a ritual I still perform every morning. I pour tea, slowly. I feel the heat, smell the steam, watch the liquid swirl. It takes 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes anchor my entire day. That's the power of stillness. It doesn't delay life, it aligns it. When was the last time you sat in a room and didn't check your phone? Didn't plan, didn't replay the past, didn't reach for sound, just sat. The wind doesn't shout, but it teaches rhythm, and your soul, it does not scream, it waits in whispers. In the monastery, silence is sacred, but not because it is quiet, because it is alive. In silence, the ego loosens its grip, the heart becomes audible, and truth emerges from beneath the noise. One of my teachers once said, "The universe hides its answers in silence, not volume. When we stop talking, the world begins speaking." Stillness is not about escaping the world. It's about returning to it fully. We take silence with us into the market, into the storm, into pain. Like a lantern, it doesn't stop the dark. It just shows you how to walk through it. People ask me how to start. I say, begin with 1 minute a day. Just one. No phone, no goal, just breathe. Feel it come, feel it go. Notice the silence in between. That space, it's not blank, it's sacred. It's where your wisdom lives. Not the wisdom from books, but the kind that grows roots inside you. In our temple, we call it listening to the well. If the water is always being stirred, it stays murky. But let it settle, and you'll see your reflection. The same is true for your mind. You don't need a cave. You don't need a robe. You need a breath and the courage to sit still with yourself. Silence is not empty. It is full of everything you've been avoiding, but also everything you've been seeking. In silence, your fears reveal their true shape, smaller than you imagined. And your hopes, they stop being distant. They begin whispering, "We've been here all along." The monk's path is not loud. It is not rushed. It is not filled with answers shouted from mountaintops. It is quiet footsteps, soft breath, and a heart that listens. So I ask you, can you sit with yourself, not to change anything, but to meet what is already within? Can you be still without filling the silence with noise? Can you treat your breath as the sacred ceremony it has always been? The stillness between breaths is not a void. It is the doorway to everything that matters. A monk walks lightly, not because the path is easy, but because he carries nothing. Not ambition, not praise, not even his name. To carry nothing is not to be empty. It is to be free. We live in a world where more is worshipped, more comfort, more validation, more things. But monks, we worship less. there is a teaching we pass down to every novice. You do not own your bowl. The bowl owns your hunger. Possession is not just about objects. It's about identity. What you think you own often owns you. The desire to be liked, the fear of losing status, the need to be right. These are heavier than gold, and most people carry them without knowing. I once had a student who asked, "Master, how do I detach from the world?" I handed him a stone. "Carry this all day," I said. By nightfall, his hand ached. "Now," I told him, "let it go." He dropped it and smiled. Detachment is not rejection. It is relief. To hold something loosely is not to disrespect it. It is to honor its impermanence. You can love without owning. You can work without obsessing. You can give without needing credit. That is the monk's walk, grounded but unburdened. Everything you cling to adds weight to the soul. And in the silence of the monastery, we notice what others ignore, that even our thoughts can become chains. There is a ritual we practice, sweeping the sand garden. Every line drawn in the sand is erased the next morning. Why? Because beauty without attachment is the purest kind. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop gripping. Like a bird perching gently, ready to fly, never trapped by the branch. Most people confuse love with possession. But love says, "I see you, even when I cannot hold you." Possession says, "I must keep you, even if it hurts us both." The monk's robe is simple, not because simplicity is fashionable, but because nothing sticks to it. Dust comes, dust goes. The robe remains light. Ask yourself, what do I carry that I could lay down? The approval of others? The regrets of the past? The pressure to succeed? Each one a stone in your pocket. You do not float by holding more. You float by letting go. There was a monk in our temple who had memorized every scripture. He could debate anyone, speak eloquently. But one day he fell silent. When asked why, he said, "I realized I had built a palace of words, but my heart was still full of clutter." He began sweeping the temple instead, quiet, present, free. Knowledge is beautiful, but wisdom is knowing what not to carry. Monks do not fear loss. We are trained to greet it, not with bitterness, Detachment is not cold. It is the fire that burns away illusion. It is the hand that opens even when it aches to hold on. You are not your things. You are not your fame. You are not your failure. You are the awareness beneath it all. Look at the sky. It holds no shape, yet everything exists within it. Be like that. Be the space, not the storm. Some will tell you detachment is loneliness, but I tell you it is the only way to experience connection without chains. You can love the world without clinging to it. You can touch beauty without needing to possess it. You don't need to renounce everything. You need to loosen your grip. Take one breath today, and with it release something. A grudge, a fear, a need to be perfect. Let it fall like a leaf in autumn. Let the wind take it, and walk on. In the end, what remains is not what you held, but what you released. The monk's lightness is not magic. It is practiced surrender. Peace does not wear steel. It wears cloth. Worn, simple, soft, and yet it is the strongest armor of all. A monk does not train to fight. He trains to feel, to hold space when the world grows sharp, to soften when life tries to harden him. This is not weakness. This is the strength to stay open when closing would be easier. In the West, strength is loud, tough, unyielding. But in the monastery, we know this is illusion. True power is silent. It does not boast. It does not crush. It listens. It lifts. There is a parable we tell. A stone and a stream argued over who was stronger. The stone said, "I do not bend." The stream said, "I do not break." And over time, the stream wore the stone smooth. Kindness is not weakness. It is patience in disguise. To remain kind when others are cruel, that is strength. There was once a novice who kept losing his temper. He punched walls. He shouted at silence. The master told him, "Go water the garden with your anger." The novice returned hours later, exhausted and empty-handed. "Did anything bloom?" the master asked. "No," the boy whispered. The master smiled. "Exactly." Compassion grows where anger fails. To forgive is not to forget. It is to stop drinking poison hoping others will hurt. It is to free your own hands so you may lift others again. In the monastery, we do not shame emotion. We sit with it. When grief visits, we bow. When rage rises, we breathe. And when joy comes, we let it stay as long as it likes. But we do not chase it. We do not cling. We learn to feel everything without becoming it. There is no armor thicker than a heart that has suffered and stayed soft. Pain can either harden you or it can hollow you out to make more room for others. A monk is not without wounds. He simply does not turn them into weapons. He wears them as reminders of how much he survived without needing to destroy. Think of the people you admire most. Were they loud? Were they cruel? Or were they the ones who made you feel safe, even when the world wasn't? That is true power. To be someone's shelter in a storm you did not create. Monks are trained to listen even when insulted, to bow even when challenged, not because we are afraid, but because we refuse to fight shadows. To rise above is not to look down. It is to lift others, even when your own knees shake. Compassion is not soft. It is fire held in an open palm, enough to warm but not to burn. There is a phrase etched into the stones of our temple: win without victory, rule without force, heal without pride. This is the monk's path, to touch lives not by overpowering, but by understanding. So many people seek to be heard. Few seek to hear. But compassion, true compassion, begins in the ears. To listen fully, to witness pain without needing to fix it. The hardest thing in the world is not to fight back. It's to stay kind when cruelty begs you to join it. You don't need to crush others to rise. You don't need applause to have worth. The quietest monk often holds the deepest strength, and the gentlest hand leaves the longest impression. In a world obsessed with domination, be the one who kneels. In a culture drunk on pride, be the one who bows. In a time of outrage, be the one who breathes. The monk's armor is not made of metal. It is made of mercy. The monk does not fear death. He dines with it. He walks beside it. He greets it like an old friend who's simply waiting just down the path. Time is not a line, it is a circle, and every breath you miss will come back to you as longing. A monk walks slowly, not because he has nowhere to go, but because he's already arrived. When you hurry, you miss the taste of your own life, the smile of a child, the warmth of tea, the sound of rain touching your window like it was sent just for you. Peace isn't fast. It moves like a candle's flame, steady, soft, and sacred. There is a teaching we whisper to every novice. Don't chase time. Dance with it. Your life is not a checklist. It's a prayer in motion, and every step can be holy. The ancient ones say, to walk mindfully is to walk forever. This moment, right now, is eternity wearing your face. Monks count time in seeds, not seconds. How many seeds of kindness were sown today? How many moments watered by silence? How much joy left unspoken, but deeply felt? You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything. You are here, and that is enough. Death is not the end. It's the reminder. It whispers, this is not forever, so make it sacred. In our monastery, we keep a skull on the altar, not to frighten, but to awaken. Each time we see it, we remember, life is precious because it's passing. And when you live with that knowing, your time expands. A 5-minute conversation becomes a lifetime of love. A single gaze becomes an act of worship. A shared silence becomes the loudest proof that you were alive. You do not need to do more. You need to see deeper. Time isn't something you run out of. It's something you wake up inside. There was an old monk nearing the end of his life. A student asked, "Master, what will happen when you die?" The monk smiled. "I will become the wind you feel on your cheek, the silence between your breaths, and the space in which your next thought arises." Time didn't end. In doing so, you become eternal, not because you lived long, but because you lived true. Monks don't count days. We count presence. And when our time comes, we do not scream, we do not beg. We bow and whisper, "I was here, and I was awake."